And that is where we're headed as a country. We are headed towards an impoverished state. I love the statement from a few years ago. Hard times produce strong men produce good times produce weak men, and weak men produce hard times. Apply it to women as well, right? Is when you go through a struggle, it builds character in you. And we're about to go through a struggle in this country because we're not producing good character traits, from the young adults all the way up to the way that plays out 20 and 30 years from now. The thousands of ambush-style attacks over the last many years targeting law enforcement. It's such a dangerous environment. And it's our culture. To you and your staff, I think this is a really important topic. And when you're utilizing the stats that talk about the thousands of ambush-style attacks over the last many years targeting law enforcement, it's such a dangerous environment. And it's our culture. For those, people are going to be offended when I say this, but hopefully they'll understand how far the pendulum is swinging. There was a time, not so long ago, where if you had a child that got paddled in high school because they were had disruptive behavior, disrespectful to an authority, the father would say to that person when they got home, I'm giving you some more in terms of a paddling. If the coach gave you a little, then you're going to get a paddling when you get home. And they didn't take the child's defense because they were teaching the young adult the respect of authority. We have a culture now that coddles young adults. That's why teachers are struggling, because you can't teach and educate when you're having to deal with behavior in the classroom. So we have to have a cultural reform on this, where parents go back to a place where some, for trying to raise your children and operate in more grace, the pendulum has swung way too far, and the respect of authority has been lost at the younger generations, and it is paying dividends in what is being experienced in law enforcement. So we've got a cultural problem. And you're talking about the online threats. And I want to hear more, if anyone wants to talk about, how do we balance the online threats with those who would learn how to target a law enforcement officer, trying to intimidate. This is how we move to third world country status. When you no longer have the rule of law, you will have poverty. And that is where we're headed as a country. We are headed towards an impoverished state. I love the statement from a few years ago. Hard times produce strong men produce good times produce weak men, and weak men produce hard times. Apply it to women as well, right? Is when you go through a struggle, it builds character in you. And we're about to go through a struggle in this country because we're not producing good character traits, from the young adults all the way up to the way that plays out 20 and 30 years from now. What do we do in balancing the First Amendment for those that are doxing, sending out personal information, not only for the law enforcement officers, but are also doing this for their children, trying to intimidate and move us to third world country status? Where is the balance? How do we get a hold of that? And I'll just open that up to anybody who wants to talk about. Where do we find constitutionally sound ways to address that? Because you're saying the stats and the data say the encouragement online is why these thousands of assault attempts, officers sitting in vehicles, is occurring. So I'll open it up to anybody.
I'll go very briefly. I think Madison's turning in his grave. I think there's an awful lot of twisting of the First Amendment and what free speech means. I think we all need to take a big giant step backwards and reevaluate how that applies. Specifically, the internet has so much value, but it's a dangerous place. We have to recognize that perhaps these are media companies. I know that's probably sacrilege among some on the right, but they have an obligation, and a lot of it is coming straight from social media. Pure and simple.
I'll add to just an extension of that is when you look at, we all know the difference between right and wrong. We were raised on it. We know the rule of law. We know what we're supposed to do. We know what's acceptable, what's not. I think the problem we see, and social media has played a big part of that, is it's given excuses of why you cannot follow the rule of law. We have blurred the lines of what's the difference between right and wrong, and we validated the ability to be able to believe your belief system and feel that your actions are appropriate. So you're right, in lies our challenge. There has to be some accountability somewhere along the way, because what we're doing is damage. And when we're not checking this, we're adding fuel to this fire. And there's no question we're seeing the results of it.
Mr. Hughes?
Thank you, Congressman. I would also add, working in the international environment, you can see how other countries do this. When you go too far one way or the other, you see consequences, good or bad, of privacy and speech rights. But what we need to be doing is looking at the social media issues. I think that's a huge part of what's going on, and looking at what laws need to be passed, what the right balance is, and that's what this body can and should be working on as well to help in that arena.
Last question, Mr. Chairman, I'll make quickly. If there is legislation that you're aware of that's floating around out there, please let some of us know that does the balance, because I didn't see that in any of the testimony this morning. Without a yield.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We need to support law enforcement officers who put themselves in harm's way every day to serve their communities and to keep people safe.